This studio was blessed by Prism because the first thing I had in here was we got this wooden desk made, and then I had the Quested, which I've had for many, many years, which is a lovely person called Roger made the monitors, and then the Atlas came in, and I had just my laptop. The Atlas Prism does have a few kind of bells and whistles, but certainly not in the converters. You know, where they're very transparent, pure sounding converters. But it has things which I love and I need. It has instrument inputs on the front, so I can actually, without patching anything, I can put like an analog, like a Prophet 6, straight into the front of the machine. And it detects what's going in straight away. It recognizes it, so there's no fiddling about there. And then also the preamps, if I want to take it out on location, then I don't have to take, you know, my fancy preamps, because the preamps actually on the machine itself are actually quite fancy. They sound great. It's really changed a lot of things for me. You know, as soon as I got the Prism stuff, oh my gosh, it was just like, we're back again, Mr. Singh. We're back. We're back. And it inspired me so much to go further, inspired me to go back into the mixing desk. Like, let's come out again. I was doing this mix at the Strong Room with an engineer called Joe, wonderful engineer. And he said to me at the end of the session, he said, I can't believe what I've just experienced. I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, you told me to put a delay and a reverb and a second reverb on the auxiliary channels. And we run this whole song linear. There was no arrangement, no bridge, no chorus, no verse. And we did the whole arrangement on the desk by muting and featuring new things, which we could have done on Logic, but we did it on the desk. You know, so for me, I actually love coming out on a mixing desk and then going back in because there's a magic in there. And so for me, conversion is really important, and I probably need more outputs than most people because I like going out into the mixing desk. I suppose it comes from being a percussionist, and I like touching things. I like spontaneous gestures when I'm making music. You know, like ba-ba, like, you know, when you do a drum roll, and it's never going to happen like that again. So you know, for me, this side of it is really important. I find it too stagnant to just think, you know, in the box, in making music in a computer, and then someone else is going to listen to it on a computer. I don't know, maybe it's the way forward, but sometimes we need to go back to go forward. I think it's important to think out of the box, and I think the whole point of education is to guide us and show us we have to experience ourselves, and the only way you could do that is you've got to kind of bag out everything you've learned. You've got to dismantle all of the learning and just try things, try new things. And, you can't stick to one particular formula, and definitely not the formula which you've been kind of taught. You can go back to it and you can always refer to it, and one should, because you've been blessed with that, you've been taught that. But and it's probably fundamentally correct, but you have to, for you to understand that on a deeper level, you have to go and do your own thing and make a few mistakes and win a few prizes, and then refer back to what you've been taught. And that's how you're going to probably, kind of succeed in the arts and technology. And we are at a very exciting point where, the digital media and the arts are really recognizing that we have to work together as a unit. And that's really starting to happen now in terms of like kind of high aesthetic and I feel very, very, it's companies like cottage industries like Prism Sound which make me feel really kind of alive and really proud as a Britisher, really. When I go back to India and I have something like this in my bag and I'm using it, I feel really proud that, okay, yeah, well, this is great stuff, it's amazing. I've always been a big fan of GML, George Massenburg's EQ. There's something, it does euphoric experience, which I just, I can't explain that. It's something like, as soon as you kind of put something in the top end, it kind of makes everything sound really like, it's like you're touching a beautiful silk sari and, with bits of gold on it. You can't really explain much more than that of what it does in terms of EQ. All I actually need is the Atlas and the George Massenburg EQ. And in terms of compressor, I just absolutely love this Dave Hill Crane Song Limited compressor. The CTC8 I really love because it does something without coloring. It glues the sound without adding any kind of color. So as a compressor, I completely love that. I never kind of thought I'll have a bit of mastering involved in the studio. And I don't, because I definitely love mastering engineers, and I really feel that there's a point where you have to really you have to just kind of, shed your ego and give your creation to somebody else to kind of sonically, kind of tighten so it can be delivered. I think there's something in that which is very, very important. And as well as these people are very, very technically brilliant at mastering. But because I'm doing quite a bit of interesting film music, I kind of felt that, okay, well, I need to give not just a stereo audio file, I actually need to give some stems so that the film, when we're doing the film mix, we can actually, the editor and the film mixer can actually, have a bit of a kind of option, a few options to ride. It can take the vocals up, or the textures, or a bit of the sound design, or the string section. And so that's the reason why I'm kind of using some of the mastering stuff. I did a few things for India, and it was tough because I knew they're not going to be mastered, and there was no budget. I did a project for MTV India, where I was kind of like working with a younger musician who's an amazing singer-songwriter called Frame by Frame from New Delhi. And they had wanted to make this film where we kind of hang out and we make this track together. So I did that. But when I had finished the track with him, I was like, well, who's going to master this? Because you're going to go and make a video, you know. So there was a documentary film of us hanging out, and then a music video to the track we had created. So MTV India had kind of, you know, did this thing, and I thought it was a great idea, but I was like, well, who's going to master this track? And I knew that there's no budget for them to send it to mastering. So I had to call up, you know, Alchemy, and luckily they mastered it overnight for me. They said, okay, Talvin, don't worry, we're going to do it. And then since all of those little problems, I just thought, you know, sometimes I just need to tweak things myself. And if we don't have the budget, you know, to go and send it to a proper mastering house,